We remember the life of Roy Clark. Good morning, and thanks for joining us on Market Day Report. I'm Christina Loren. A number of trade issues move ahead this week as Congress looks for additional information on the USMCA, which President Trump plans to sign before December 1st. RFD-TV's Sarah Mock joins us from our D.C. studios with an update. Sarah?
Well, good morning, Christina. I think it was a little bit surprising to see how much trade issues kind of moved forward this week in Washington. Of course, all driven by this new Congress that's going to come in and start work on at the beginning of January. Of course, they're going to be looking at, with this new Democratic-led House, they're going to be looking at the USMCA for approval. And we're looking at kind of how the dynamic is going to change with those folks. They're looking, the Democratic leaders say, to a U.S. International Trade Commission report, which is having a public hearing today and yesterday, where they're just trying to kind of gauge what the public thinks of this USMCA and whether what the impacts are going to be. Of course, ag has featured prominently on that panel. Yesterday, we heard from a number of folks, including Florida and Georgia fruit and vegetable growers. We've heard from them on this program before. They are a bit concerned about the promises of the USMCA. It did not include any kind of mechanism for them to kind of combat what they see as dumping from Mexico into the U.S. market. So they're looking to work more with the administration to kind of straighten that out before a deal gets signed or finalized. We also heard from the U.S. Grains Council. They were on the other end of the spectrum, calling the USMCA the gold standard of trade agreements, very much looking forward to how it works to eliminate both tariff and non-tariff barriers. And then we heard from the International Dairy Foods Association, which kind of sat in the middle of those. Of course, dairy farmers were excited with what they saw with Mexico, but a little concerned that the wins that were really highly celebrated by the president himself on dairy with Canada might not quite be the win that they thought it was going to be. They think Canada has the potential to kind of look to evade those. So the folks at the International Trade Commission will hear from meats today, including the National Pork Producers and the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. And we expect to see a report coming out of from these hearings in the coming weeks, and it'll have probably big impacts on Capitol Hill. Now, of course, President Trump is looking to sign that agreement, as you said, and he will be meeting with leaders of Mexico and Canada at the G20, November 29th and 30th, just about 10 days from now. Those aren't the only leaders he'll be meeting. At that meeting, he'll also talk to President Xi of China. Now, of course, we heard from Larry Kudlow earlier this week that talks have reopened potentially with China, though staff from the White House are being very kind of cautious with their comments about they don't expect kind of big significant movement out of that meeting. But we are also looking at some USDA trade aid developments. We saw some numbers coming out that I'm excited to talk about a little later in the morning with you. Christina?
Thank you, Sarah. Great comprehensive update on what's going on with the USMCA. Let's talk a little bit more about trade aid, though we've got a little time left over. Is there any update on the second round of payments at this point?
Yeah, so we did hear the Secretary has confirmed that there will be a second round. He's going to make some kind of announcement around December 3rd. We did hear reporting today out of Reuters that $840 million have already gone out the door from that first tranche. But given that that first tranche was $6 billion, that's just around 15%. So I think maybe a little less than folks had expected to see kind of delivered to farmers so far. But of course, folks are waiting on harvest. Folks are waiting on kind of a number of those kind of numbers to sign up for the program. And we, of course, are also seeing that that's just for the top 5 commodities. That's for soybeans, corn, pork, dairy, and wheat. So we expect kind of an update on the trade aid to come out of USDA pretty soon.
Yeah, and everything's changing by the minute these days. Thank you so much for that report, Sarah. And we will be checking back in with you at noon for additional updates from the nation's capital. Tariff turmoil and low commodity prices threaten a struggling farm economy. But as the industry braces for tough times, experts offer strategies to help ag bankers set producers up for success.
As the farm economy dips for the